My thesis topic is on cancer, and more specifically, Iowa's rising cancer rates. I selected this as my topic because it's a very personal issue to me. This June, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, and by the grace of God, she's stable. But it's an experience that really sticks with you, and when that happens in your family, you naturally start to research everything about it. And in my research, I found that Iowa has the second highest cancer rates in the nation. And so I started to ask why. In my thesis, I hope to educate people on the cause of Iowa's cancer rates, and I hope to prevent other people from experiencing what my family has gone through.
Hi, thank you all for coming. I would like to start out thanking some people. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Arguello for instilling a love of rhetoric in me last year. And I would like to thank Mr. Groutman. He very patiently listened to my thesis probably 12 times this year, so I would not be as prepared as I am right now without him. Imagine yourself sitting in a doctor's office. You've come in for your regular annual checkup, and you casually mention how tired you've been lately and how you have a few swollen lymph nodes. After listening to your symptoms, your doctor decides to run some tests just to be safe. You're not worried. You're busy thinking about what you're gonna eat for lunch after your appointment. But you did notice the doctor's been gone for quite some time. Finally, the doctor returns with a concerned look on his face. He doesn't have good news. You only manage to catch pieces of what he's saying as you stare at the floor. Lymphoma, prognosis, immunotherapy. You're completely overwhelmed right now as 1,000 questions race through your head. Am I gonna die? How will I tell my family? And what caused this? Unfortunately, thousands of people across Iowa have lived this exact scenario. Someone you know and love may have received this news and fought this battle. Since I began writing my thesis, almost every major news organization has done a segment on Iowa cancer rates, and for good reason. Iowa has the second highest cancer rates in the nation per capita, and the fastest growing one, even though most states see declines. But what caused this? That was the most important question you could have asked. The issue of cancer is as old as man, with records going as far back as 3000 BC. The disease wasn't understood until around 420 BC, when Hippocrates, a Greek doctor who wrote the Hippocratic Oath, first named it. He was the first person to use the word cancer in his writings. Although society had named cancer, they still didn't know what it was. Real understanding didn't come until the 1800s with the invention of the microscope, which revealed that cancer is made up of cells that divide uncontrollably. Society knew what cancer was, but didn't know what caused it. There were many ideas as to what causes a person to develop cancer, but scientists eventually linked cancer to exposure to carcinogens over time. The first instance of this theory was reported in 1713 by Bernardo Ramazzini, an Italian doctor. He noted that Catholic nuns rarely got cervical cancer, but had high rates of breast cancer. He wondered if their lifestyle of celibacy was linked to their unique cancer risk. Today, we know that cancer is caused by a combination of factors, not just one. Cancer often comes as a complete shock, and wrapping your mind around how it happened can be tough. When my mom got diagnosed, she explained it using a simple analogy, a pie tin. Understanding how cancer occurs is like a pie tin that everyone is born with. For most people, the tin starts practically empty, but inherited genetic mutations make the tin fill up faster. Every time you're exposed to a carcinogen throughout your life, a slice of pie gets added to your tin. The size of the slice depends on the timing and severity of the exposure. The body can remove slices, but the moment your pie tin is full, you'll develop cancer. So now that we understand what cancer is and how it develops, the real question becomes, what are we exposing ourselves to every day that could be increasing our risk? To effectively lower exposure, we first must understand what a carcinogen is. The National Cancer Institute defines a carcinogen as any substance or agent that causes cancer. There are over 500 identified carcinogens. They can be physical, chemical, or viral. To understand how carcinogens cause cancer, we first must understand a little bit about genetics. Your DNA is in your genes, which contains the instruction manual for making proteins. Proteins control how your cells grow and multiply. When you're exposed to a carcinogen, it damages your DNA, turning normal cells into cancerous ones. If the damage isn't repaired, it leads to mutations that cause cells to grow uncontrollably. Understanding how carcinogens cause cancer is key to reducing exposure, not only for preventing disease, but for preserving quality of life. In short, your ability to live, function, and thrive in the body God has given you. God has commanded man to have dominion over the earth. In practice, this means protecting and strengthening what has been given to you. This command also applies to the body. Scripture reminds us that the body is a temple of the Lord, meant to be cared for and respected. When carcinogens accumulate, the body pays the price. Cancer strips away strength and independence, making it harder to serve God. So if someone asked, how important is limiting your exposure to carcinogens? My answer would be, limiting exposure is one of the most important things you can do. We know what carcinogens are and how they affect the body. Now the question is what to do about them. In 2023, the Iowa Cancer Consortium introduced a 4-year-long action plan to address the rising cancer rates in Iowa. This plan includes several strategies, but I'll focus on prevention and risk reduction. The American Cancer Society, the leading authority on cancer risk, estimates that almost half of all cancer cases are associated with preventable risk factors. That's why I believe that Iowans should focus on preventing cancer, not just treating it. I believe that limiting individuals' exposure to common carcinogens is the first step in lowering Iowa's cancer rates. There are many carcinogens you encounter every day. I'll refer to these as common carcinogens, and I've sorted them into 2 main categories: lifestyle and chemical. Lifestyle carcinogens are some of the most common carcinogens, while also being the easiest to limit your exposure to. The most common carcinogen that people voluntarily expose themselves to is alcohol. Despite its classification as a Group 1 genotoxic carcinogen, alcohol consumption remains embedded within our culture. Many people view drinking as a harmless or expected part of life, which blocks awareness of alcohol's risks. According to the National Institute of Health, around 20,000 Americans die from alcohol-related cancers every year, which is almost twice the number of drunk driving deaths. Despite these risks, 53% of Americans report consuming between 1 and 7 alcoholic drinks per week. Although this amount falls within what many view as a healthy limit, research shows that even moderate drinking increases cancer risk. Alcohol is linked to cancers of the mouth, throat, and esophagus. If this wasn't bad enough, evidence also suggests a link with liver and breast cancers. Studies consistently prove that cancer risk increases as alcohol consumption increases. Alcohol functions as a carcinogen because the body metabolizes it into acetaldehyde, a toxic compound that binds to DNA and often causes mutations the body cannot repair. Over time, this damage adds up, allowing cells to grow uncontrollably and form tumors. Additionally, alcohol increases hormone levels like estrogen, which contributes to a higher risk of breast cancer. Alcohol is classified as a Group 1 carcinogen, meaning there is strong evidence from human studies that it directly causes cancer. The human distinction is important because that's what separates it from all other classes of carcinogens. Essentially, the more you drink, the higher your risk is for developing cancer. And Iowans drink a lot. Iowa leads the nation in binge drinking, with 22.5% of adults. Now, just to clarify, I am not saying that Christians should abstain from all alcohol. God gave us wine to gladden the hearts of men, and he's given us the command to eat, drink, and be merry. But with the evidence of alcohol being carcinogenic, and verses in the Bible such as 1 Corinthians 10:23 stating all things are lawful, but clarifying that not all things are helpful, Christians should make wise, informed decisions about their alcohol consumption. The second carcinogen that most widely affects our nation across every age group and demographic is ultra-processed foods. According to the University of Yale, 70% of our grocery store products are ultra-processed. Ultra-processed foods are packaged, highly palatable foods, such as candy, fast food, and sugar-sweetened beverages. These foods are so common because they're engineered to make you addicted. Activating the brain's reward centers, much like alcohol or nicotine, they tailor ingredients to increase pleasure and decrease willpower. A population-based study conducted in Spain examined the relationship between ultra-processed food consumption and cancer risk. Colorectal cancer patients completed food frequency surveys, which categorized how processed their food was. The results revealed a strong correlation. The more ultra-processed food consumed, the higher the likelihood of colorectal cancer. The World Health Organization classifies processed meats as a Group 1 carcinogen, meaning there is strong evidence they can cause cancer, especially in the gut. Meat is considered processed if it's preserved through methods like smoking, curing, salting, or adding chemicals. Preservatives like nitrates are linked to cancer. Eating ultra-processed foods, especially processed meats, increases the risk of colorectal cancer due to chemicals commonly used as preservatives. But beyond what we consume, our overall health also plays a role. This brings us to obesity. Our culture today attempts to normalize being overweight and obese. It's labeled as body positivity. Demands have been made on clothing stores to expand their plus-size range and to feature more realistic body types in advertisements. Phrases like healthy at every size and all bodies are good bodies are dangerous and ignore clear medical evidence that proves obesity is unhealthy. According to the World Health Organization, obesity is defined as having a body mass index, BMI, of 30 or higher. For example, a 5'3" woman who weighs 170 pounds would have a BMI of 30.1, making her categorically obese. It's important to note that BMI isn't a perfect measurement of health because it doesn't account for body composition. It's simply a tool to gauge where you generally fall on the weight spectrum. In Iowa, obesity has become increasingly prevalent, with the adult obesity rate reaching an estimated 37% in 2024. This trend is concerning because obesity is now recognized as a significant cancer risk. The World Health Organization identifies obesity as a major risk factor for multiple types of cancer. Obesity contributes to cancer development because excess body fat acts like an active organ, releasing hormones and chemicals that promote cell growth, inflammation, and DNA damage. High estrogen levels and disrupted insulin signals make it easier for cancer to develop. Together, these risk factors create an environment that fosters cancer development. But not all carcinogens come from our choices. Some come from our environment, often without us even realizing it. The second category of common carcinogens is the chemical carcinogens. There are two types of chemical carcinogens, genotoxic and non-genotoxic. Genotoxic carcinogens directly damage DNA and cause mutations that lead to cancer if not repaired. Non-genotoxic carcinogens don't damage DNA directly, but indirectly promote cancer through inflammation or disrupting normal cell growth. The most prevalent chemical carcinogen that puts Iowans at risk of cancer is radon. Radon is a naturally occurring radioactive gas found in soil, rocks, and groundwater. It becomes harmful when it's trapped in and contaminates the air. The EPA states there is no known safe exposure level to radon, and it's recommended that if your home's radon levels measure from 2 to 4 units, you should have your home tested. And treated as well. This is the case for most homes. In Iowa, over 70% of homes have a radon level at or above 4 units per liter. In fact, the average Iowa home has a radon level of 8.5 units per liter. Radon operates as a carcinogen by releasing radioactive particles, and when inhaled, those radioactive particles become trapped in the lungs and damage their DNA. Over time, this damage leads to mutations, increasing the risk of developing lung cancer. Lung cancer is the third most common cancer diagnosis in Iowa, and by far the deadliest, accounting for nearly a quarter of all Iowa cancer deaths. Yet, Radon goes unnoticed in thousands of Iowa homes. The only way to know if your home has a radon problem is to test for it. Glyphosate is second on the list of chemical carcinogens. It's the active ingredient in the herbicide Roundup and has been classified as a group 2A carcinogen, meaning it's probably carcinogenic to humans. Glyphosate has an interesting history. Discovered and marketed by Monsanto in the 70s, evidence of its carcinogenic potential appeared as early as the 1980s. The EPA initially classified it as a possible human carcinogen, but reversed the decision in 1991, citing insufficient evidence. When glyphosate-resistant crops were introduced to the market, applications skyrocketed, making exposure common not only for farmers, but for the general population through residues found in our food. Studies show that glyphosate exposure significantly increases the risk of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a cancer of the immune system, and may raise overall cancer risk by as much as 41%. Animal studies support these findings, showing dose-related increases in tumors across multiple organs, DNA damage, and premature death. In summary, glyphosate is a chemical Iowans are exposed to daily, and its carcinogenic properties make it a serious public health concern. Minimizing exposure is key to protecting yourself and your family. To summarize everything I've told you so far, carcinogens are all around us, and many are completely avoidable. Now, not everyone agrees that these everyday exposures are the main cause of rising cancer rates. While it may seem obvious that exposure to avoidable carcinogens is one of the leading causes of cancer, many argue that other factors, often factors outside of your control, cause Iowa's rising cancer rates. The first argument that many people make about cancer risk is that genetics determine your cancer risk. This is what you'll typically hear. Genetics determine cancer risk. Inherited mutations can increase an individual's risk of developing certain cancers. These genetic predispositions can be passed down through families, meaning some people are born with a higher baseline risk than others. And I would agree, yes, there are gene mutations that can put a person at a higher risk of developing cancer. These mutations are inherited and can't be prevented, but their effects can be minimized. For example, a mutated BRCA gene increases a woman's chance of getting breast or ovarian cancer. However, this argument often overlooks that it's only an increase in risk. Having gene mutations doesn't mean cancer is a given. Less than 10% of all cancers are directly related to genetics, and only 5% of women with breast cancer carry a mutated BRCA gene. Genetics may have given you a risk, but the choices you make can either increase or decrease it. There is strong evidence that healthy lifestyle choices can minimize cancer risk. Overall, while genetics undeniably play a role in cancer susceptibility, they don't guarantee cancer development. Inherited mutations increase risk, but do not determine outcomes for most people. Starting a life with a small slice of pie in your tin shouldn't stop you from limiting the other controllable slices. Another argument you might hear revolves around the fact that obesity is a carcinogen. Many people argue that you can't always prevent obesity because biological factors often lie outside individual control. Conditions such as thyroid disorders can slow metabolism and promote weight gain even with healthy eating and exercise. I would not agree with this argument. The relationship between an underactive thyroid and obesity is often misunderstood and sometimes overstated. Scientific studies have consistently failed to establish a direct link between hypothyroidism and obesity. For most patients, only around 5 to 10 pounds of weight gain may be related to the thyroid. 1 Corinthians 6:19-20 states, "Or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, for you were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body." As Christians, we know that neglecting your physical health and diet to the point of obesity is not glorifying to God. The scapegoating of the thyroid as the cause of obesity is a misconception that has gone on for far too long. While the thyroid does play a role in metabolism, there is no substantial evidence to support that an underactive thyroid directly leads to obesity. Scripture emphasizes stewardship of the body as part of man's God-given responsibility to flourish and exercise dominion. Obesity, though complex and influenced by many factors, poses significant health risks and conflicts with the call to honor God with your body. We've explored common lifestyle carcinogens and their impact on the body. We learned that carcinogens change the DNA and lead to cancerous mutations. We then moved on to chemical carcinogens and the differences between genotoxic and non-genotoxic carcinogens. Finally, we ended by learning about the 2 chemical carcinogens that put Iowans at the risk of cancer. But many people don't worry about cancer, not until someone they love or they themselves gets it. In the end, the issue of cancer in Iowa isn't just how to avoid getting it. It's a matter of defending your quality of life. It's a matter of living your life without the fear of treatments no longer being effective or preparing your children for the possibility of your passing. To plan your weeks around different activities and hobbies rather than your next appointment with the oncologist. It's most importantly a matter of fulfilling your calling from God. Titus 2:2-8 speaks of older women and men discipling the younger generation. But to fulfill this calling, you have to live long enough to get old. You can ensure this by taking steps to limit your exposure to carcinogens. And we aren't powerless. The risks we've talked about today aren't distant or unavoidable. They show up in everyday choices. For the average person, this means being wise about alcohol, understanding that even moderate drinking carries risk. It means limiting ultra-processed foods and actually knowing what's in your food. It means exercising, not just for appearances, but for long-term health. It also means paying attention to the environment you live in. Test your home for radon, and when you can, reduce exposures to chemicals like glyphosate by being intentional about the foods you buy. None of these choices are complicated, but over time, they add up to something powerful: protection. Protection for you, your future, and your family. Cancer prevention isn't about living in fear. It's about taking responsibility for the life God has given you. Your health shouldn't be something you fight for only after it's lost, but something you protect every single day, so that moment in the doctor's office never has to become your reality.